pieces. Oh, that was recording. There have been so many pieces and facets and angles on this topic this week of the battle of life and how to fight it. Um, and all week I've been thinking about being with you guys coming up and thinking of things I would want to say, and then the next day a speaker at SRW would say a lot of the same things and go, "This is just great. Everybody's in the same wavelength, and there's so many ways to come at this question." Um, and so I'm just going to take a few of my favorite things that have occurred to me, and I hope you all get a chance to watch the SRW talks online at some point later on. I realized they were probably in the middle of the night for you to do it live, but they're very much worth it. So speaking of not defining ourselves as sinners, I'm going to actually just talk about self-definitions for a bit because I have recently been reading Light Bearer, which I have here, if you aren't familiar with it. This is the book that Asha wrote about Swami Kriyananda and his whole life. Basically, she summarized his early life, and then basically from Ananda on, she has a chapter for every single year, and it is epic. I just highly recommend reading this book. It's amazing. At the beginning of the chapter on 1999, he is in an Ananda village community meeting, and he said that you do not need rules if your self-definition is clear. And this immediately resonated with me. As we mentioned, I'm a teacher. I'm still relatively new as a teacher. I'm teaching middle school, which is sort of the 11 to 14 age range, which is a notorious age range to deal with. And so I'm still figuring out a lot of things. And the summer is when I kind of reflect on what happened this year and what I'm going to do better next year. One of the things I've been thinking about is our school rules. I don't know how familiar people are with the Living Wisdom schools, because I know we don't have them in Australia yet. But Swami wrote a book called Education for Life, laying out sort of the philosophy of master's philosophy of education in a way that could be applied by anybody. It's not sectarian. And then the schools that Ananda founded based on that are called Living Wisdom schools. There's one here in Palo Alto. It's right by the church. That's where I teach. And we have 9 school rules, and they're on this big colorful poster in every classroom. And they are things like enjoy yourself, practice kindness, be a lifelong learner, be a loving friend, use your will to create good energy, these kind of things. And we're very fond of saying that these are our school rules. This is just what we have. And I didn't grow up in this system. I grew up in public schools, and it was just a mess. I wish I had a Living Wisdom school, but there you go. So I'm adapting to this myself. And how do you actually run a school, from a point of authority as a teacher in this, and get the kids all on board with this? And because it's not like we don't have other rules. Like, you can't have your cell phones in class. If somebody asks to join your game on the playground, you have to say yes. There's just all these things that, like, yeah, they're rules. You can't say we don't have rules. But when I read that comment of Swami's, you don't need rules if your self-definition is clear, that's when it clicked for me, and I think I'm going to have fun just talking with my kids about it in this way. But it's happening, actually, because those school rules are actually our self-definition. And everybody knows them in the school, and different teachers spend a different amount of time talking about them, but we all know they're there. And we define ourselves as students, as teachers, as a school, as people who are kind, who are friends with everybody, who enjoy learning, etc., etc. And what happens then is, like, yes, there are other rules, but you don't have to be a policeman to enforce them. You can sort of look at each other and go, like, we're friends here, right? We know this isn't how it's supposed to go, right? And people sort of go, yeah, you're right. And we get on with things as we need to do. And it doesn't feel so much like a rule as, like, we're all aware that we're trying to do the same thing here together. And we can all just make this work by adhering to those principles. And so that really resonated with me, and I'm taking that back to school in the fall, definitely. But I was just thinking, what other ways can we apply this concept of self-definitions? Because what I find is the day-to-day aspects of life, it's hard to remember to keep your energy high every moment, to remember to ask God for guidance in every moment. We just get so caught up in everything. But if I can get a big picture principle in mind, then I can sort of hang on to that no matter what other mess is going on down at this level. And so, because I know, like, I may pray in the morning and then forget about it till the evening and I go to meditate again. And something else has to be carrying me through this. And so part of my prayer in the morning is like, help me out all day. I may forget to ask, but just help me, please. But if there's just like one thing you can grab onto, I find that very helpful. And this is when I first came to Ananda, this is kind of what impressed me. It's like there was such a big context suddenly. I had been a spiritual seeker in a lot of different ways, and I always had felt that there were limits. And when I got the teachings of Sanatana Dharma through Ananda, Yogananda, Kriyananda, it felt like, now there's the whole picture. And I could just find like those high points to hang my hat on, as it were. And it's like, okay, like hang on to that. And we're good, even if things go crazy as we go through here. So anyway, self-definitions. As yogis, we kind of think that they're not good things. Swami Kriyananda actually defined the ego as a bundle of self-definitions that we have to get rid of because they usually limit us. But you can't just get rid of something without replacing it with something, which is why when we meditate, we don't tell people, oh, just make your mind blank. And I'm always frustrated if I read a novel or something and they meditate and they try and blank out their mind. It's like, no, that's not how it works. If you, just blank it out, somebody else is going to try and get in there and fill your head with negative thoughts, whether you consider that your subconscious or the devil or whatever. It doesn't work. We do Hong Sa, we do a mantra, something to fill our mind with something positive and keep it focused and keep it strong and pointed towards God. And so same thing with self-definitions. We can't just take them all away. But we can play with the ones that we have. So one thing that was occurring to me was, how can we sort of take our self-definitions to a higher octave? So one example might be somebody who is a mother. Some mothers get very caught up in their identification as a mother, and they can do a very good job of that, or it can be a very contractive job of that. Sometimes adult children have trouble escaping that kind of a mother. Sometimes it's a very good kind of a mother. But if it gets very personal and contractive, and this is what I am, it's limiting. If that's something you identify with, can you take that to a level of, can I be a mother to everybody, the way Divine Mother is? Can I just treat whoever comes in front of me with that kind of love and acceptance and compassion in whatever way is appropriate for the situation? Sure. But you're expanding from something you know how to do at your level to a bigger version of it. But you can use that self-definition for good rather than for a contractive purpose. This is sort of like using the enemy's weapons against him, right? If we're talking about the battle of life, turn it to our good. Here's another sort of fun example of that. My name, Tandava, is the name of Shiva's dance. So one of Shiva's names is the Lord of the Dance, and he dances the Tandava dance that creates, enjoys, and ultimately destroys the entire universe. The story of how this name came to me is its own whole story for another time, but I really appreciated it because dance was really my thing. Like through college and through my 30s, folk dancing and social ballroom dancing just all the time. That was my exercise, that was my social interaction, that was just my jam the whole time. And that was sort of shifting as I was a monk for a while after I came to Ananda, so things were just changing in my life. And that part was falling away. But it felt to me like this was a transmutation of that aspect of me. Because when I looked back, I actually felt that there are a lot of very good spiritual lessons that came to me through dance before I knew I was on the spiritual path, before I knew they were spiritual lessons. And just for a fun example, um, so I learned uh, ballroom dancing, social ballroom dancing, so not competitive. You're not in the, you have to do everything exactly perfect. You only perform with your one partner. You have to do things exact for the judges. No, that's no fun. Not my style. And the teacher at Stanford, where I learned all this, he's fantastic. His goal was to teach us how we could be anywhere with any music, with any partner, and have fun. That was basically his goal. So in the ballroom dance context. And so he would do things like, let's say we just learned a slow waltz, like a box step or a cross step waltz, slow 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, sort of a thing. And we're practicing that to the music, and then he changes the music. And now the music's going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And he sees us start to trip, and he pauses it, and he says, "What's wrong with the music?" And people go, "Oh, it's too fast, we can't do this." And he goes, "No, there's nothing wrong with the music. You learned a faster kind of waltz last week. Do a rotary waltz. It'll work great." It's, "Oh, yeah, you're right." And then we just switch the kind of waltz we're doing, and it's working. And by the end of a few courses that I took, he would just riff on all the different styles of music he had and all the different styles of dance we had. He would just keep changing it and do something in a surprising genre or with a beat we didn't expect, and we just have to figure out what style of dance at what tempo we had to do to everything, and it was great. And he would see us getting confused sometimes. He would call it, "What's wrong with the music?" And we all learned by that time to just shout back in chorus, "Nothing." So that's just one of the big things I remember from his classes. But it applies in life. How often are we dancing along, doing whatever we're doing in our life, and life, the universe, karma, whatever you want to call it, changes the beat on us, trips us up, things aren't going the way we planned, we can't do the thing we wanted to do, we lost the job we wanted, what have you. And we think the music's wrong. Is it? Karma is frustratingly and excruciatingly perfect is the way I've always felt it. I don't always enjoy saying that, but I have to remind myself sometimes, like, if this is happening, like, there's a reason. So if God is the divine DJ, there's some reason that he's changed the music in my life for this to be happening. And I can just look back at the way I came to Ananda. My life was in shambles. I had a relationship that had just completely imploded. I left a job, and just so many things were happening, and I was miserable. That's when I met Swami Kriyananda. That's when I came to Ananda, and I was open enough for a complete shift and a complete change. So was it a good thing? I couldn't tell then, but would I be here without that having happened? I don't know. But what music is playing in your life? How are you going to go along with it? And this is a way that I can define myself as a dancer, because I'm taking these principles that I've learned and just expanding them into a bigger arena that's going to take me where I really want to go, which is not just a good dancer, but a good dancer through life and through eternity. Actually, I'll say something about not defining yourself as well, too, because we say self-definitions are bad, but that's not the same as defining yourself as not something. So before I came to Ananda, I explicitly had 3 things I never wanted to do as a job. I never wanted to manage people. It was just like, just let me do my own job. I don't want to have to make sure other people do theirs. Just, I don't want to do it. I turned down that offer at Google once. I never wanted to work in retail, not my scene. I never wanted to teach kids. Adults are great, but I want the people who are there because they want to be there. And I was just terrified of teaching kids. So my first official formal paid job at Ananda was managing East West Bookshop. So there's 2 of them, management and retail. There you go. Of course, now I'm a middle school teacher too. So like, karma gets you. So defining yourself as not something will not work. It will come back to you. Though it was interesting at East West, because I was so not identified with being a manager or working in retail, I was just so relaxed. It's like, obviously I don't know what I'm doing, so obviously I just need to pray for guidance, and I just need to sort of go around and see what's happening and what needs doing. The definition I started getting for myself was, I'm just a body. They needed somebody here, and I'm the body that's in the spot right now. And the one day this really hit me, I was on the phone with, I think it was a bank, and we were talking about a loan and all this stuff that I never thought I would be dealing with. It just doesn't seem like me. But it's like, well, clearly they needed somebody at this end of the phone to be doing this. I'm in the manager's seat. I'm doing it. I guess it's me. I hung up the phone and I hear a crash, and I go downstairs and somebody's knocked over a lamp. There's broken glass on the floor, and I'm standing there, and there's broken glass there, and there's a broom there, and there's a body in the middle. And I just go, well, I guess this is where I'm being put now. I get the broom and clean it up. And so that's shifting from a negative self-definition to just not being defined there at all. Though again, like I was saying, I think it is useful to have some sort of a positive definition most of the time. And I think Sagar talked about this in his Friday talk. I think he was on Friday. And he said, well, if you were going to pick a self-definition, what else could you pick? And he said, Yogananda called his actual autobiography of a yogi. And that's what he went with. A yogi is someone who practices a definite technique of God contact, meditation through any path, not just ours, but somebody who's actually doing something about it. So you can define yourself as a yogi. You can define yourself as a devotee. A lot of us at Ananda have these bangles here, and there's a whole chapter on these in Autobiography of a Yogi. And Yogananda talks about how they're good for sort of mitigating astrological karma that may not be so much your issue, but it'll just sort of help take care of that for you. And great, that's fine, I'll take it. But honestly, as much as that, I wear this because I see it and it reminds me I'm a devotee, and I have a guru, and this is a definition for me, and it's with me, and it reminds me. The phrase "What would Jesus do?" is sort of almost a cliche these days, but it's true. And if you have this definition, you can go like, I'm a disciple, I have a master, and I'm trying to be like the masters. What would they do? And that's your connection. That's your guiding light. That's that highest context you can hold on to. Let's see. It also occurred to me that if we're talking about self-definitions, well, how do we define God? And you may say, well, you can't define God. That's limiting. The God is infinite. It's like, okay, well, we're talking about him anyway. He's in our brains. He's already limited. So let's just deal with this. There's a term, I believe it's Ishtadeva, which is the form of God that you relate to. And so when we pray to Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, Friend, Beloved, God. These are all different options. And some people, Swami Kriyananda said he really strongly related to God as Divine Mother. That's how he would typically talk to God and relate to, I want to say him, but but her, what, again, pronouns, what do they mean? Of course, he was very close with Master. Master was an incarnation of God. He was an avatar, so that counts. For me, the friend one really works, because a friend is someone who's just by my side all the time. We can laugh and have fun together. We can commiserate together, whatever happens. I've noticed many times in my life that the moment that a lesson really hits for me, maybe I've been struggling with something for a long time, and finally it pops out and it's clear. It's like getting a joke, and I just start laughing, and I feel like Master's laughing there with me, not at me, though it could certainly be at my expense usually, but it's very kindly way, very good humored way. And so that one of a friend really just works so well for me. Some people, it's the mother. For the gopis and Krishna, it was the beloved. Around Christmas time, we relate to God as a little baby, because that's Jesus. That's another one. It's not in our typical invocation in the Ananda prayers, but you could put child in there. There are devotees, in India who may carry around a little murti of baby Krishna, and that's just what they worship, and they take care of it as if it were a baby. So this is just another way we can use definitions to our advantage, even though they're an aspect of this sort of limited material world. We're here, we got to deal with it. So let's use it in a positive way. And don't try and go completely abstract and go, well, God is infinite, omnipresent, so I don't know. But no, make it concrete, because God can be any of this. He doesn't mind. Just take what works for you. And let's see, I'm just watching it. I have like 10 more minutes or something. I don't know how this usually goes. But I wanted to tell you one last thing about my grandfather this time, and sort of self-definitions and how one defines oneself moving through the world. And my grandfather passed away this January. He was 96. He lived a very good life. He is one, you could say, won the battle of life, I think. And he never said this in so many words, but I think a theme of his life was service. And let me back up a little bit. He was a Rosicrucian almost all of his life, but in the last 10 years he did take Kriya. He was doing energization exercises every day in his 90s, so just mark that down as like life goals. And so he was a very spiritual person also. But service, I think, really defined so much of what he did. He was an elementary school teacher and principal for most of his career. Almost as soon as he retired, his thought was, what else can I give? And he went out and he started teaching new teachers, training new teachers part-time, because he had more to give. My grandmother, for the last 20 years of her life, was sort of on a steady, gradual decline, physically definitely, mentally not so much, I'd say emotionally decline. And he was really her main caretaker, increasingly so over, like I said, 20 years. And she would never hear about going into a facility or getting other help. She said, no, Leonard can take care of me, it's fine. And he did. It was amazing. I mean, he just had such incredible patience for someone that drove the rest of us crazy, honestly, a lot of the time, because it was difficult taking care of somebody in that situation for that long. But he did it with this spirit of service. And after she died, this was maybe 8 years ago or so. So like they're almost 90 at this point. Some friends of his said, we're out of town for a little while. We have this little house in a small beach town down the coast. Do you want to just go stay there for a bit on your own? Get away from things, just relax. It's been a tough time. And so he accepted. And he goes down there, and he doesn't know anybody. It's just a small town, so there's the ocean there, but there's not a lot of other things to do. And he's just like, well, I'm here for a few days. What's going to happen? And every morning he would just sit and meditate, and he would pray, how can I serve today? If anybody deserved a vacation after everything, excuse me. This is the first time I've told this story since he passed, and so I still feel it a lot. If anybody deserved a vacation at this point, it was him. Years of taking care of my grandmother, taking care of everybody, just serving. And still, this is where he is. He's like, I have no agenda, Lord. What do you want me to do? Every morning. And he said that every interaction he had with people, something meaningful came out of it. And he started talking with the waitress in the cafe where he had lunch. And she ended up just telling him how, she believed strongly in God, but none of her family did. And she felt so alone and just needed somebody to talk to. And she had somebody she could talk to with him. He visited like a local history museum sort of thing, and there was a security guard there who ended up showing him his favorite prayer that he had printed out in his wallet. Like, how often is a security guard going to do something like that with a random tourist, right? One of the best ones, he went out to the beach one afternoon, and this young man, like maybe 20 or so, walks up to him as if he had an appointment and just starts talking to him. And this young man is just at a crisis point in his life. He doesn't know what to do. There's all these things that feel like they're falling apart around him, and they spend an hour or so together. And he listens to him, and he probably gives some advice where he sees it can work. And at the end, he says, I really feel like I should give you a blessing. And he blesses him with the spiritual eye. And the young man goes away. And Like whatever happened, we don't know who that was. We don't know what effect that was, but everything he did, this was this was how it played out. The one thing that did not look like serving other people, he said that happened. He was walking along the sidewalk and he had one of those canes that folds out into a little stool, right? So you can just stop and sit when you need to. And somebody on the sitting on a bench nearby just says, "Oh, hey, that's a pretty cool cane you got there." He said, "Oh, thank you, thank you." But one of the little rubber feet on the bottom is coming off, so you don't want to sit down and have it tip over, right? So you should be careful. By the way, there's a hardware store right around the corner. Goes in, gets a little rubber foot, on his way. And it's just like so simple, but it feels to me like it was Divine Mother just saying, "You're doing a great job, and I'm still looking out for you, so you can keep doing a great job." It's just like the little things often are the sweetest. But yeah, that how can I serve today aspect of his life, I really think it filled everything that he did. And in the last days of his life, he just had a parade of people that he knew just coming through. His entire chiropractor's office closed for the afternoon so they could all come visit him at once. Um, just so many people, and the last few days he was just completely out and unresponsive. Then somebody would come and he would be back and he would give them just love and light and then just withdraw again. And when I posted on Facebook that he had passed, I got multiple comments from adults who remembered him because he was their principal when they were in first grade or second grade or something. How many of us remember our first grade principal? I mean, my goodness. Um, but this was his theme, and this is how he fought the battle of life, by holding on to that one thing that then everything else starts to fall into place under it, and I can't say what was in his head all the time, but that's what I'm looking for. Like, what can I grab onto, that the one thing to hold on that will sort out the details as we go along, and it's fine. I don't have to worry. Where's my anchor point? And so I would just invite you guys to think along these lines, and this doesn't have to be a forever thing. You can play with this. Is there a self-definition that you have that you can transmute to something higher? Is there a form of God that you could be more conscious in your relationship with? Is there a guiding theme or question of your life, like how can I serve, that can be your focus? And again, it doesn't have to be forever, but can you use that as an anchor point, as something you hold on um, to draw closer to God? And then these are our weapons in the battle of life. Whether you like the warlike metaphors or not, I go in and out of how I relate to the to the military type of approach to it. But sometimes it feels like a battle, and even when it's not feeling like a battle, we need to be making progress, and we can hold on to these things whichever mode we're in. So I invite you to think about that, see if there's a way that may apply. And I believe we do questions and answers.
Thank you, Annabelle, for bringing those amazing perspectives, but also opening your heart to us. Such a joy to have you share those beautiful aspects of your life. And I'm sure we all can relate to everything you spoke to in a different way. And what a gift. Thank you for sharing that. And we had a wonderful question that popped up throughout that one Tracy asked, and it relates back to when you were doing at the bookstore, East West. And she said, did you have resistance to the definition of, like when you got moved into the bookstore, that you thought were not yourself, and when you're actually working there? And if so, how did you negate that? So I guess it's the how. What little toolbox did you have to negate that?
That was an interesting time in my life. I was still kind of new at Ananda, and there was a lot of the energy of like, oh my gosh, this is just a lark. Let's just dive in and see how much I mess this up or not. So that wasn't deliberate, but in a way you could say that not taking yourself too seriously sometimes is a good tool. Now that may uh, be context dependent. I don't know, but it's certainly one that I like. Sometimes if I get a little too like, well, I know what I'm doing, and so we have to do it right, and you should respect me because I know what I'm doing, then things aren't going to flow as well. Um, and if I mean the question is really, I wasn't relating to that role. And at the time, I was kind of just laughing at it because like they put me here. Okay, well, let's see what's going on. Um, and there were certainly times when I would just kind of hit something. Go, oh man, again, the more ways I could find to make it fun, that would always help. That's just sort of one of my ways of going about life anyway. So I have um, a, a bias towards fun, and so I try and tweak things. I try and make sure people around me are having a good time, and I'm having a good time. Um, and Yeah, and some things I just didn't do very well. In part because I was resistant to it, but it wears away at you after a while, and the resistance goes down. You go, yeah, I can actually do this.
Yeah, thank you. And Andrew wrote, beautiful, your grandfather. He's definitely someone to aspire to in life, and he really defined what you spoke about, as such an aspiration about, well, how can I serve? And really appreciate you sharing that with us. So thank you. And I have a question for you, because I guess your definition, around what we're talking about, and particularly when it relates to Ananda, essentially it almost, the rules, or that rule is really, because Ananda really is about community, isn't it? But it's about sort of almost lifting everyone up. I always picture the Great Pyramids, and the pyramids were big base to a point rather than upside down, and kind of what you were defining was really that, like every part of us is helping prop each other up. Can you speak to the community aspect of it, and how that, like if you sort of waltzed in and became Mr. Google with Ananda, then you probably weren't really fitting into that brick of the pyramid. So losing that definition is amazing. Could maybe
I had
share a
actually
little
been
bit.
out of Google for a couple of years. I left Google, um, not knowing what else would happen. I sort of stepped off a cliff, metaphorically, just because I knew like I can't run this race anymore. It was fun for 5 years, and I need something else, and I didn't know what it was. Um, so I was in, and like I said, that was the time when I met Swami Kriyananda, and things started falling into place. It actually took a while, and in my mind, it's a direct connection. It actually took me a year and a half. I went and learned Vipassana meditation first, and came back. All these things. Um, but it was, yeah, it kind of shook me up and then put me back in. So I kind of had a clean slate at that point. But community, that is, community is wonderful, and I'm glad you guys at least have the online thing, even if you're spread out geographically, because going back to Swami's quote that I started with, having a clear self definition, well, it also helps to have a lot of friends who share that clear self definition, because they can support you in it. They're trying to do the same thing. When you're having a bad time, they may be having a good time, and vice versa. And we prop each other up that way. And when you're, at, say Google, but anywhere you may happen to be working, what are the chances that the person in the cubicle next to you is going to be on the same wavelength? And now this isn't uh, to say that you can't have an uplifting work environment, but if depending on who you're sitting next to in your cubicle, you may really have to make sure your outside community of friends and guru bhais is really strong. Boy, my mom, she is also a devotee. She lives here in Ananda, Palo Alto. She spent the last 10 years before she retired at her as a legal secretary, sitting next to just the most negative, antagonistic person. And I don't know what karma she was burning off, but she just had to come back and recharge, with our satsangs, with our meditation, with everything you can do. And lean on your friends. Like, go ahead and ask when you need help, um, because friends want to help friends. It's frustrating if you know a friend is having difficulties and you don't know what to do about it.
Mm.
And then when they say like, could I just talk to you, or could you do this for me? Then like, I will jump on it. It's like, yes, yes, let me help. Um, and then we just have so many models. I like I said, I'm still a new teacher, but I've had a number of school teacher, I should say, but I've gotten to observe a lot of the really good teachers here. Before I worked at East West, I spent 6 months with Surendra, who was the manager before me. He was sort of my East West dad, I called him, and I just got to attune to him, and he would just come to mind when I had difficulties later on when he was gone. Um, but yeah, yeah, use your communities, use your friends, everybody you've got. I
Mm.
forget where the original question was. Was that, did I go there?
No,
I
that's
forget.
great. Yeah, it's that relying, it's a beautiful when you do take Swami's words and you put that in then to a community perspective, it's always a wonderful uh, opportunity. I will just
One of,
share
what,
briefly. Sorry.
I was going to say one other bit on that. An astrologer friend of mine was talking to somebody and giving her advice on, becoming more in with the community and having closer friendships and everything. And he said, if you want to make friends, ask for help.
Mm.
Um, because people probably want to help. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, well, we must be friends because I wouldn't help them. And it's great, so it's really just keep it moving. Everybody helping everybody. God helping God. What were you going to say?
I worked training highway patrol and police in motorbike riding, and worked with my training guru of those things. We also helped train like Californian Highway Patrol and all these things. And we often said, if you got rid of all road rules and speed limits, but just had one law, which was consideration, and that's what you were judged by with any incident that happened. And it's something to think about. It's kind of an interesting thing. If you took everything away, but just judged by consideration, the outcomes, you would see that the world would change. Just an interesting element when you put it into
Interesting.
a
Yeah, that
user
would be fun
perspective.
to see how that got enforced. There's a story about a parent at Ananda Village years ago who apparently put the yamas and the niyamas on her refrigerator. So that it's probably everybody knows the yamas and the niyamas. It's the five do's and the five don'ts of yoga. And whenever her kids got into a kerfuffle or something, they would all go to the refrigerator and they say, which one of these broke down? And she said it was also great because it wasn't her being the enforcer; it was the refrigerator. So they can blame the refrigerator. But but there they were taking it back to these principles.
Oh, yeah, wonderful. I love it. The Melbourne group of Ashtanga, is the grandfather you spoke of the same who had a sweet new romance in late in the life? Would you like
Yes,
to tell us
yes.
anything about that?
Oh, it was sort of sweet because, yeah, so my grandmother passed away when he was probably 89, and he lived to 96, so 7 more years, and yeah, he had a girlfriend for the last most of that time, and it was just somebody he could relax with. They did art together, they traveled some together, and it was just sweet. So he did get his little bit of vacation at the end there. But even so, though, that theme of service was always going through. We felt it all the way through to the end.
Oh, it's wonderful. Eh, Um, and did you see, I mean, obviously your grandfather was serviceful. I mean, that's what he did. And you said he got Kriya towards the end of
Yes.
his life, and was that something that he saw or understood? Was that something that interested him throughout? What sort of drew him at that stage to Kriya?
Yeah. Well, he had family
Hmm.
doing that, and I don't know what actually kind of triggered it when he started getting into it, but it was always there. And he and my mom, when my mom was like in college, they would go to Ananda yoga classes. They went up to Ananda Village when it was first being built. Um, so like Ananda had always been around. I don't know why at that point of his life, that's when he took Kriya, but that was the way the music changed for him at that point, and he followed as a good dancer.
That's wonderful. Are there any other questions? I love your comment, karma, and correct. I'll sort of quickly pop this down, but karma is painfully and excruciatingly perfect. I love that.
It's true. It's I accept it intellectually. I don't always accept it emotionally, but I'm working on it.
Do you have any little tips in life? Like, I mean, we all do, don't we? We all get wound up at some point or get, drawn into it. But do you have any sort of tips on how you personally deal with when things pop up that, you do have that reactive?
Yeah, that's interesting. The I also another thing I think about karma is it is well, I don't just think it, I've heard it, is it's generic.
Hmm.
And to me, this, I'll tell you what I mean in a minute, but to me, this lessens its power a little bit because karma is not the fact that you got fired from your job,
Hmm.
say. It's the fact that you are getting upset about it. It's the fact that anything can still get to you. And it doesn't, like, the only reason it was the job is because that's what's going to upset you. It is like the karma itself is generic until we can learn to just go with the new music and dance new steps. And the faster we get to that, the better. Swami was years ago, Swami Kriyananda was taking a bunch of devotees to go skiing, and they were in a car on a windy mountain highway, and they hit another car, and everybody was fine, but their car was totaled. A bus came along. They all literally got on the bus, left the total car on the side of the road, and went skiing. And he's going along, and on the bus ride, they're laughing and they're singing and stuff is going on, and the people on the bus were saying, your car just got totaled, like, are you okay? What's going on? And Swami said, in 6 months I'd be over it. Why waste time?
Hmm.
Like, let's be happy now. Come
Yeah.
on. Same thing happened after the first temple at Ananda Village burned down, and he was in town the next day, and he was in a shop, and he was just like whistling to himself going through the shop, and the shop owner knew what had happened. She said, like, how are you humming and just whistling and happy? And he goes, well, I lost my temple, I didn't lose my voice. Because it's really, everything is inside ourselves. It's not about what's out there. And for me, this helps. Maybe this is a little abstract. I tend to be a brainy sort of guy. I like to think intellectually and abstractly about things. But I just, it helps me not take it personally. Swami once said that one of the great mistakes people make is to think that everything that happens to them, it affects them personally. No, it's not. Nothing is personal about this. Karma is an impersonal law, and the more you learn to just flow with everything, the less it will affect you, which is really what it's about. It's about the effect. I'm peeking at the chat now too.
Wonderful, thank you. And both John and Eliza loved the beautiful definitions, that what's wrong with the music and God is the divine DJ, they both interact. It's such a great way to look at that way. And thank you for sharing with that. It's a great perspective and a great tool to use in our daily life. Thank you for that. And I think it's everyone here can really feel that. So what a gift. And Alexandra has sort of popped in and she said, could you speak about the Kriya practice changes our self-definition? So does the practice of Kriya help with that self-definition?
my first inclination is it's a little hard to separate that particular factor out of everything else. I mean, it must. I mean, my life is completely different from what it was 15 years ago when I first came to Ananda. What part was Kriya? What part was community? What part was everything working together, the grace of God? Um, Kriya itself, interesting. Hmm, you know, there are moments in Kriya when I can feel so in my spine that I can feel an emotion or a thought or something sort of come at and bounce off. And this isn't all the time, but if you've read the autobiography of a yogi, you may remember the phrase, "Thoughts are universal. They're not individual. Thoughts are things. They're actual objects out there." And once in a while, I've had a meditation where I kind of just saw a thought go by, and it's like, oh, that was interesting. I could have thought that thought, but it just moved on by, and in that sense, you're just getting to, I'm not sure what the definition is, but it's detaching from things that it isn't, certainly. And it probably gets you closer to the fact that I am a devotee, I am a yogi, I am a child of God, however you say this in your own heart. Because, oh, look, there's one more thing that I'm not. It's a little bit of a netty thing. Um, Probably many ways this could go. That's the first one that comes to me. Yeah.
Thank you. And I think even by definition, Kriya, people think Kriya as the technique, whereas Kriya could be all the things that you're talking about, that Kriya practice is an
And so
engulfing of all.
and so often you just don't know
Mm.
was changing in you. Um, and this can happen on small scales and larger scales. I had somebody in a beginning to meditate class. She came back 2 or 3 weeks later and she said, "Yeah, I'm meditating. It's like fine, whatever." But she said, "My coworkers at my very stressful job have been asking me, 'How are you so calm all the time?'" And I was just thinking, huh, is that new? I guess it is. Interesting. Um, and that's just a short time frame. Swami Kriyananda said, if you're going to judge yourself, which, by the way, he said, don't, but if you're going to, give yourself a span of 12 years. Look back and just see what's changed. And it's going to be a whole mix of everything. And it's going to be different probably for everybody. Some people who are not spiritual warriors may need to bring up this energy to really, fight their own battle of life. Some people who are too harsh may need to mellow out and be more devotional. But Kriya is getting us in tune with the Guru, in tune with God, and they know what we need, and they will shift it in whatever direction we need to go. Again, we may not see this in any given meditation. We may not see it in any given year. But probably over 12 years, you're going to see something.
Oh, thank you. Now we are at 11 o'clock, and it's been such a joy to have you on just a wonderful way, different perspective, and look at from a different angle. And thank you for, again, just bringing yourself and your light and being an amazing channel. So
It's
really
so fun to see new friends and old friends from the other side of the world. I love it.
Now we can finish here. I'm not sure what I think Patrick's busy typing there. But if there's any more questions, or let me just unmute.
A round of hellos.
Yeah.
I'll take it off screencast so you don't get feedback.
While Patrick's doing that, do we want to just with the main group before we go? Do we want to just share 3 Oms and share this beautiful energy that we had with everyone around us, and really appreciate it. And those that want to stay, we'll just leave it open, and you can have a little free satsang, and of course, Tanda, if you do need to go, please, just with the time mix up, you may have
It's all right.
bitten off. So let's just really close our eyes for a second and really feel this amazing light that's come to us all, and know that it is just one light. Go back to the original words of the song that Tandava shared with us, which is, we can't beat the darkness out with a stick. We really need to share this light. Let's visualize this light being shared with the three Orms. Let's rub our hands together, energizing. Oh. Oh. Oh.